Hey y'all, my name is Tamara Andress. I am your Fit and Faith podcast host, and I am pumped to be here. Just me, no words, no scripts, no intros, no outros. I love authenticity. I hope to breed vulnerability, and I usually do this alongside another dreamer, mover, shaker, entrepreneur, passionista is what I love to call them. If you're a dude, then a dude. But I am loving just coming together in community with other people to share their high and low stories, to share their journeys to come back, because I believe ultimately that's where God would have us. He would have us on the mountaintop. And even though we learn a ton in the pit and in the valley, God would want us right now, especially in this season of life, in this time of our culture, to shine. And so here I am. I want to teach you how to shine. I want to be alongside you when you get your glow. I want to catapult you into your calling, whatever that is. So this isn't a fitness podcast. This is not a religious banter, though we preach Jesus all day long. And this is not just about nutrition or health or wealth, though I like some green, and I know you do too. It's not okay for us to not be okay with talking about all of these things in unison. You guys, we don't just need a mental health podcast. We don't just need a fitness podcast. We don't just need a religious, spiritual podcast. It needs to blend. This is what Fit and Faith is all about. It's all about creating alignment, connectivity. It's about pursuing your wholeness and claiming it over your life and over the lives of the loved ones that you have around you in your community. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to get to know you more. You can like, review, subscribe, whatever it is. Send me an email, DM me. It's me. I have an amazing team alongside me, but you guys are getting me for now. So enjoy. I'm so pumped to have a coffee conversation with you, is what I'd love to call them. Don't have my coffee right now, but I have it in my system, as you can see. All the love. Let's do this together and keep going for your dreams, y'all. Hi, and welcome.
Welcome
to the Fit and Faith podcast. It is amazing to have you here. It's been something that I know we've kind of pressed on each other's heart for a while. And there's also like that component of fear factor of like, what are we going to talk about? Am I ready to get on live anything and do that? But I've had such confidence in knowing that having you come on as a guest was going to be special, not just for me, because I love quality time with you, but for the people on the receiving end. So I'm really excited to have you, mainly because I feel like our friendship has grown in such an organic way over the last few years. And it always seems like so perfectly timed. And I never know what that's going to be, but it's definitely more of a blooming flower than like an onion, because I feel like it's just another component of how we share in our sisterhood as we walk into deeper understanding of who we are. Mm-hmm. But it's been amazing to watch you bloom as I bloom. So I love having this season with you.
I love it too.
So you haven't heard, but this is Michelle Lappin, and she is not only obviously a dear friend, but an up-and-coming success coach in our area, and I'm excited to share that component. It's not a title that she likes to claim fully yet, but it's new, and we're excited to share kind of how that evolved and how we got where we are. So I'd love to hear, like, you just introduce yourself to everyone. I know, where do I start?
I know, exactly. Where do I start? So my name's Michelle, and obviously she said that already. Should I share my age? I don't know if that matters.
Age doesn't matter.
I am only like 25.
Right, there you go. No. We need wisdom. We at least have to be 30 here, okay? We're 30 forever.
It's funny, a lot of people think I'm like in my 20s. They say at least 25. A lot of people think I'm in my 20s, and I'm like, thanks, I think.
Yes, it's a compliment. It's the no wrinkles. It's probably the height probably has a lot to do with it too.
That and the braces. And the braces probably don't help.
For those not viewing and just listening, she has braces. So there you go.
Yes. So I'm a mom. I have a son who is 15 and just started driver's ed.
Ooh, oh wow.
It's interesting. It's a learning curve for all of us. I am a military veteran. Served in the military for 10 years, one deployment, and college graduate. And I now work for the Navy. When I was in the military, I was in the Army, and I now work for the Navy as a civilian. And I serve in my church. And actually, I'm not serving a whole lot right now because of school. I'm putting a lot of effort towards school, but I'm usually serving pretty heavily in the church. Just trying to pour into other people wherever I can. And then sometimes, actually more often than not, people are pouring into me as I'm trying to pour into them.
Isn't it funny how that happens? It's needed though. We were just talking about that earlier, that you can't continually pour out no matter what role you're in, whether it's a work role, whether it's a motherhood role, which we're constantly pouring out of. There has to be time and space for replenishment.
Right.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I want to hear, because I don't even really know, more about your experience in the Army. That was like, you did that at what age?
So I joined when I was 19.
Okay.
I joined when I was 19.
Okay.
So my brother was in the Army.
Okay.
And he was in for probably about 2.5 years or so. And he passed away from a car accident. And it was a point in my life where I wasn't really doing the best.
Yeah.
And I was still in high school.
Yeah.
I was a junior in high school. And I remember he had come home on leave. Yeah. And he was visiting with us, and the accident happened when he was going home. And the last conversation I remember having with him was him sitting down and telling me that he understands what I'm going through and that he loves me no matter what, but he wanted me to promise him that no matter what, that I would graduate high school. And I did not keep that promise.
Wow.
I got into things within the next year where there was a lot of challenges, emotional, physical, just a lot of challenges. And I ended up quitting high school and leaving the state.
Wow.
So about a year or so after that, I got my GED and realized my life was going nowhere. And I was like, what am I doing? And I broke my promise. And so I wanted to do something that would make him proud, or that I thought would make him proud of me. So I thought, why not try to finish what he started?
Wow. That's awesome.
So
it's noble. Maybe not the best way of reasoning, but
you have no idea. I was like, what did I do?
I'm sure.
But I am proud of it. Looking back, I am proud of it. I didn't get to necessarily finish what he started because I only did 10 years.
Yeah,
but
that's a long time.
It was a long time. I did mostly administrative stuff while I was in. But at one point, not quite about 9 months after I had my son, my first sergeant came to me, and first sergeant is basically almost the highest level enlisted person in a unit. Basically spoke to me. I had some medical issues at one point, and I wasn't there when he talked to the rest of the unit. So he talked to me personally and told me that basically our unit was being activated and being sent overseas. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? He said, well,
Facebook Live, everyone's listening, and you're joined in. And I just realized we didn't record for the podcast.
Oh, no.
For those just joining, welcome to the Fit and Food Podcast. We are now actually starting.
Whoopsie.
And that's okay, because now we're more comfortable. So welcome, Michelle. I love you so much. For those who have already been on listening to us, you're going to get a quick round two. And I think now we're in like this space where we're going to be able to share, I think, more fully. So I'm excited about that. But I'm grateful to have you here. I feel like we have really grown into a season of blossoming together. I feel like when I met you, I was definitely a wilted flower, and you have always been a friend that stood by me no matter what that looks like. You've helped nurture that
and you've also allowed me to help nurture you in times when you need it. And it's a beautiful experience to be in a friendship like that, because it bonds you in a way that sometimes friendships are always the outpouring. We talked about that. We're constantly pouring out and you never felt fed. And while it's okay that you can be fed other places and continuing to pour into other people, when it's that reciprocal relationship, it's such a beautiful thing. So I'm thankful to have you in my life, and thankful to have you on here to share with other people just the genuine peace that you bring when you come to a table, when you come to a house, when you come to a coffee date. But more importantly, I just think you have this heart for people to see them blossom. And I'm just thankful for that. So for those who don't already know, this is Michelle Lappin, and she is not only a dear friend, obviously, but also an up and coming success coach in our area. And she's done and doing a bajillion things. And so I think, just dive in again, I'd love for you to share, how it is that you started out in the military and you were in for a decade, and what did that look like?
So, for those who haven't heard me start this yet, I was actually, when I was about 17 years old.
Yeah.
My brother, who was already in the military, had joined the military prior to that, had passed away from an accident. And the last conversation that we had, he knew that I was in a difficult season of my life, and he made me promise him that I would, at the very least, graduate high school. And I did not keep that promise. So I ended up quitting high school and moving out of the state. About a year later, got my GED and decided that I wanted to do something with my life, which was going nowhere, and make him proud. So I decided to join the military. Fast forward a few years, had my son. I had started off, when I first joined, I joined the reserves.
Okay.
So I was only doing weekend duties.
Okay.
But still military.
Yeah. I actually didn't know you could do that as a enlisted.
Yeah, it's either reserve or active. Cool. Okay. So I had our unit had our weekend duty. Yeah. And I had some medical things going on. It was actually really crazy. I was having these pains in my side, all day the one day, and we were at the unit and I couldn't figure out what it was. At first I thought it was a cyst, because I used to have uterine cysts. Okay. And so I thought a cyst had ruptured because it felt similar. Yeah. Very, very similar. Yeah. And eventually they were like, well, you need to go home. Just go home and rest. Yeah. So I was getting ready to get in my car and I threw up, and I said, wait a second. Oh, this is not a cyst. What is going on? Yeah. So I went over to the emergency room. Turns out I had a kidney stone.
Oh, okay. I was thinking appendectomy, because that's what happened to me.
That's what they thought.
Oh,
so because they did did a CAT scan, and it turns out that I had a kidney stone. Oh my gosh. So I was at home the next day, recovering from that. Sure. And I get this call from my first sergeant, and he told me basically everything that he told the company, that basically that we were being activated. And when I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, what does that mean for me? Yeah. It basically means that I'm going to go to Kentucky. Meanwhile, I live in Ohio. Okay. I'm going to go to Kentucky and I'm going to learn how to drive trucks. Because we're going to go to Iraq and we're going to transport fuel from base to base.
Wow.
Mind you, my son, whom I had, was only 9 months old.
Wow.
By the time we were leaving, after I got training, and by the time we were ready to leave for Iraq, he might have been, actually, to take the back, he might have been about 10 months old at that time. Okay. So
I think that's
but he was past a year old by the time I left. The military has this policy that will not deploy a mother until their child is at least a year old. Okay. So I was still eligible to go because he would be a year by the time I left.
Right. Gracious. So, and you were in a stable home at that point?
Partially.
Okay. Partially. But dad had him at this point.
No.
Oh.
I had him full time at this point.
Okay.
His dad and I were not together.
I gotcha.
So I thought it was only appropriate. He actually had only met his dad once prior to that.
Wow.
Prior to me finding out that I was being deployed.
Okay.
Then we got more interacted.
No,
got him because his dad was living in another state at the time.
I gotcha. Okay.
So it was difficult.
Sure.
So he went while I went to my training. He went to go stay with his dad during that time, and then he went while I was in Iraq to stay with his dad and stuff. And after I came back, well, first off, that deployment was, whew.
Yeah.
I was an emotional hot mess.
Yeah.
The entire time, between stuff that I had struggled with from my life prior to the military.
Okay.
And stuff I dealt with while I was in the military. It just anxiety, depression, anger, everything.
Yeah.
And the deployment didn't help anything.
Sure.
And then during the deployment, I believe it was February time frame, early 2016, we're driving down the road on our mission and an IED went off on my vehicle.
Oh, wow.
I happened to actually not be driving fuel truck that day. I was driving a flatbed with some food supplies and stuff like that. It was a Connex with food supplies. Yeah. So it was definitely.
Holy cow.
I was grateful it wasn't
2016?
No, excuse me, 2006.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I was like, wait,
I'm so
when
sorry.
were you driving trucks when I knew you? Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Woo! Okay, got it.
I said 2016.
Okay, 2006. Got it. Still
Anyway.
pre-2011. I was thinking like that was when that happened. This was before then.
2001.
2001. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
We're all confused on the dates.
Okay.
2001.
It was after
9/11.
Yes, after 9/11.
2001.
Exactly.
I'm like, wait, 2011?
It was after that.
Okay.
Actually, I joined the military after 9/11.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Okay, that puts in perspective. Okay. Yeah.
I really didn't know. I really didn't understand what I was doing. Plus, my
Clearly.
recruiter told me that because I was going in as an admin, I would never go overseas. Yeah,
Of course you did.
they lie.
Yeah.
FYI,
Yeah.
for anyone wanting to join the military, they lie about everything. So ask people that have been in the military.
Wow. Okay. Check one. Done.
So yeah.
So here you are. You have gone through this, I mean, multiple things. The sergeant tells you you're gone. You're dealing with anxiety, depression, and any of the other underlying currents that had occurred prior to in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I mean, initially, I just was like, I was in the passenger and then there was somebody driving and the thing went off. And so the military, after the first couple of years of the war, realized they needed to protect their people more. So they came up with this equipment that would protect the vehicle. So I happened to be in a very protected vehicle and it was a very small ID. It was, I understand it was a 60 millimeter round.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like a little,
Sure.
It's not that little, but
I don't know.
it was a
To
big
me,
fireball right in front of us,
yeah.
but it wasn't severe damage.
Sure.
Neither one of us got hurt.
Yep.
Thank you, Jesus. But like both of us looked at each other. I was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? All right, let's go. Let's keep driving." Like,
Yeah.
That's what we did. It was just an instant like rush of, "Oh my God, just keep driving."
This is real. Yeah.
And we just kept going and kept going. Mind you, our vehicle did not have any type of capability to communicate with any other vehicle. We had no
Why?
radio communications. Our unit only had a certain number of them. And because we were in a convoy, they would have only certain,
gotcha.
every so many would have some kind of
Sure,
radio
sure.
comms.
That's crazy.
So we didn't have anything. So
Yeah.
there's a little like thing on the door so you could open it and like reach out. So
Yeah.
I'm basically reaching out the little hole in the
Yeah.
door to give a thumbs up to let them know we're okay. And we keep driving. And we
Oh
were
my
probably
goodness.
about 15 minutes or so from the destination we were going to. It wasn't that far from
Wow.
the base that we were going to,
Okay, wow.
which kind of makes
Scary
you
to think anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, the perimeter being.
So we get to the base and there's there's vehicles in front of us. They get through, we get to the gate and we get ready to drive through. Vehicle shuts down completely. And we're like, oh my God. Apparently some shrapnel from the IED had gotten through the engine and hit something and caused the engine to shut down. But it wasn't until literally we were at the gate.
Oh my goodness. So,
Like, talk about
yeah.
I don't even know how to explain it. I was so grateful that's because otherwise, if that vehicle had stopped anywhere before that, we would have been sitting ducks. we would have been sitting ducks.
Yeah.
We would have had to basically had people surround our vehicle to get out and protect us with their weapons. Otherwise, what happens is, if you end up the idea to do ID is you catch one vehicle, people get out because the vehicles, and then they end up attacking you and stuff. So I was so glad it didn't have to. It was
escalate.
There are people that lose their lives, lose their limbs, and whatever, and so I'm so grateful it wasn't that bad.
Right. Still traumatic, nonetheless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you ever deal with PTSD from that scenario or not really?
Not necessarily. Like, I don't think sometimes it didn't really fully hit me. And I think it's more of a, like, we were okay, so it wasn't that bad. Sure. It's just, sometimes I get startled from loud noises, but that's really it. And then I get ringing in my ears sometimes because of that.
Sounds good.
So that's
just curious.
Yeah, that's the biggest. So,
so fast forward me, what does that look like? Like, how long were you there?
We were there. So I was in country. They call it in country when you're over there. I was in country for a total of 9 months.
Wow.
I had some medical stuff happen towards the end of, usually for the Army, you're in country for a whole year.
Okay. Gotcha.
Towards the end of that year, I had some medical stuff happen and they sent me home early.
Okay.
So I wasn't there for the entire time, and I didn't come home with my whole unit.
Okay.
But there was still a whole process after that. I had been reserved beforehand, so I had a full-time job beforehand. I get home and I don't have a job. Now,
interesting.
Typically with reserves, the government has come up with this policy to protect the soldiers, essentially, where they're supposed to hold your job for up to 5 years after you leave for a deployment. But my son's father and I had decided we were going to try and be a family and be together. So he had gotten orders to Pennsylvania. He was in the military too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I didn't share that, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's important.
He had gotten orders to Pennsylvania, which is where most of my family was.
Okay.
And I moved back to Pennsylvania. So then I was basically unemployed for about a month until I was able to find a job. And then once I found a job, I had to reacclimate myself to civilian life.
Yeah.
And not oddly, like, people don't always realize how much of a transition it is to go from being overseas to coming back to civilian life, whether you're reserve or active duty.
Sure.
It's like, there's just so much.
I mean, I witnessed it being a child in a home of somebody who that happened to quite frequently, that he was deployed, and then even the massive transition when he got out and having no comprehension of who am I, what am I supposed to do with my life, when that's all you're known. And he was in for 20 plus years, so that's a whole nother kit and caboodle, because he never had a pre-military identity. He only had his growth and identity. So how old were you when you got out?
When I got out, oh geez, you would ask me that. I think I was like maybe 32. It was just in 2013 when I got out.
Okay.
So it was maybe 32.
Yeah, and your son
like
at that age was now... Yeah, I know. I
math on
think you
that.
did that. I know you're good at numbers. But...
So he was born in 2004. If I got out in 2013, he was 9.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So obviously there's still duration that you guys are in and out and trying to figure out, you're in reserve for the remainder of that time.
No.
Okay.
After I had gotten back from my deployment, about a year or so later, I actually went into what they call an active guard reserve program.
Okay.
Where you become activated. You're like an active duty soldier, but you work for reservists. So on top of working day to day for the Army, I'm also doing the 1 week in a month.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So it was a lot. I can say from my experience in the military, there were a lot of challenges, and a lot of it was even more challenging because of stuff from my earlier years.
Sure.
It's not for everybody,
yeah,
but I look back and I can say that it really shaped my life,
Mhm.
and there was actually a lot of benefits from it too. I got
Sure.
school benefits. It
Sure.
got me out of where I was, the position I was in,
Sure.
the lifestyle I was living.
Sure.
It got me out of all of that. And if I hadn't made that choice, I have no idea where I'd be today.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things I would say I don't necessarily regret it.
Right.
Can't say I enjoyed every minute of it,
Sure.
but I don't regret it.
I feel like a lot of people, and you know, speaking from just people that I know anyway, that it is an avid, like planned way to get out of situations from your childhood.
Oh yeah.
Because the plan's already there. And often when you're in any sort of traumatic home life, all you want is to get out. And when somebody's offering you money and they're offering you a way out, and it doesn't, to you, you're like, traveling, sure. People that I've never been around, sure. Like all of these things, knowing, okay, they're going to pay for my education, all of the benefits to what they propose. I'd love to know like a bit more about that pre-life, that pre-military life. Like what catapulted you to be to that place other than your brother's passing? And how has that component, because I know that's the ground that I've trudged the last 3 years about, like going way back, digging up those roots. Where does that come into play for you?
So I will go all the way back to about the age of 10.
Okay.
I was born in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And my shout out to Philly.
I don't know why I said woo. I don't know anything about Philadelphia.
Eagles.
There we go.
Sorry.
She's very obviously a
they
sports
will
fan.
always be my Super Bowl champions.
There we go. Love it.
Oh my God. Okay. So I was living in Philadelphia, and my mom, I guess, decided that she wanted to move out of state. So she decided to move us to Ohio. So just all of a sudden, my parents weren't together at the time, but all of a sudden just said, oh, we're moving to Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Out of nowhere. I literally remember driving. She had this big, those big vans, those creepy vans.
Oh yeah. The ones with the window shades.
Right, the real long, like you have the 2 seats, and any of the seats that were in the back, they were out, and we only had a mattress in the back of the van, and we slept on the mattress during the van ride. Wow. As I look back, I think that's really creepy and really unsafe.
That was before seatbelts and all that mattered. No car seats.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm glad I survived.
Yeah.
But
my mom experienced that as well.
Yeah. So we moved to Ohio. I remember transitioning from a couple of different homes, probably about 3 or 4 times before we actually settled in one place. My mom was looking at finally buying a house.
Okay.
And we were living in an apartment in a bad area. And she was waiting for all the details to work out so we can actually close on the house and move in and everything. And her and my brother went to the store to get milk and some other stuff, and she was robbed at gunpoint.
Whoa.
Yeah. She talked to the realtor or something like that. They talked to the people that were selling the house, and they actually let us move into the house before everything was finalized.
Wow. Just for safety.
For safety reasons.
Wow.
And so we finally settled there.
They would not do that today.
No. They wouldn't do that today. So we finally settled there, and that was, I think I was in 3rd grade. Yeah, it was about halfway through 3rd grade, if I remember correctly. I was basically in that house until I was 18.
Okay.
Normal, typical teenage stuff for the next couple of years or whatever, until my mom decided she wanted to get remarried.
Okay.
She had met a man. Trying to be mindful because I don't know if she's going to watch this.
That's okay. That's understandable. I do it every time.
So he was young. He was much younger than her. Okay. He was actually closer in age to me than he was to her.
Okay.
But I mean, they seemed like they really liked each other. He seemed genuine.
Yeah.
Everything was fine and dandy or whatever for a little while. And then at one point, things started to shift. And basically, he started paying me a little more attention than he was before. And started touching me in places that he shouldn't have. I was 13 when it started. And so I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't understand. I mean, I think I kind of knew like it wasn't okay and it wasn't normal.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say.
Sure.
So I held on to it for 2 years, and it kept going for 2 years until I finally started saying something about it.
And you would say something to him or your mom?
I said something to 2 of my friends, 2 of my close friends, and then I said something to a counselor at school.
Okay.
Once the counselor at school found out, child services got involved, and they started questioning me. They questioned my mom and him, and they questioned my 2 friends that I said I shared. And I guess with all of the emotions and everything that I was going through and not really understanding, there were things that I had left out with one or the other. And so, and back then, even like children's services and research and stuff, they didn't understand things like they understand things now.
Absolutely.
So they basically, between that and at one point, I just kind of shut down completely emotionally. So they closed the case. They didn't do anything else. I remember the day that everything first came out with the counselor and children's services got involved. When I got home that night, I remember going into the house, and I was face to face with him, and basically he looked at me and said, I can't believe that you would lie about me like that. And
in front of your mom?
In front of my mom. And I couldn't say anything.
At this point, you're 15.
I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
I was like,
you had no voice.
No,
Yeah.
I just turned my head away and just went to my room, and that was it. I think one of the things that hurt the most wasn't what he did to me. What I think that hurt the most was that I do not recall ever receiving an apology from my mother.
Sure.
Now, where I am now, I can understand that maybe I didn't necessarily need an apology from her. She wouldn't have known what was happening.
Yeah.
But because of all the discrepancies and the stuff with CPS, she didn't believe me either.
Yeah.
And how could she really know? How could she? It's hard. And I know that I've heard people that have gone through even worse than that.
Sure.
And they say there's signs or whatever. Yeah, there's signs, but when you're not already like understanding what the signs are, you're not gonna notice them.
Of course not. Yeah.
It's like when someone cheats, there's signs, but you don't realize their signs are there.
Right.
You know, so I don't blame her.
Well, you have a blinded eye towards the one that you love and the situation that you've cultivated as right or, perfect or this ideal.
Right.
And so anything that skews that, if it's not within that storyline that's in your mind and heart, it's really hard to conceptualize as true because she could have easily seen signs the whole time and then just ignored them because of how you just get on a roll of like normalcy and expectation, and it can completely blindside you.
Absolutely.
So keep going.
Yeah. And that's, it took me a long time to really come through that forgiveness on that.
Yeah.
But when I understand it from her perspective, like she really didn't know. She didn't know what the signs were. She didn't really understand. And maybe there was some internal guilt too. I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm
not that it totally wasn't her fault at all.
I'm sure.
But so, I know I'm well past that now. It's not.
So you then lived in silence about it for 3 years, essentially ignored it. Did it stop at that point with him?
It stopped at that point.
Okay.
He was still in the house for a little while after that.
Okay.
And
I know we have puppies here.
You're not going to let me pick you up. He was still in the house for a little while after that. And then some things happened between the 2 of them, and they did finally split up.
Okay.
But with all of what had happened and me still being, basically I never got any help from it. I never went through counseling because it basically got closed.
Right. So you just dealt with the shame and the guilt. And
right. And then started getting interested in boys and things like that. And that eventually opened up a whole can of worms of me not understanding that that's not how love is supposed to be, that you're not just supposed to give yourself to people, and that there's more to it, and you don't just do it to anybody. And so there was a whole couple of years season of just not understanding, not knowing, being with people I shouldn't have been with, and making a lot of mistakes in that regard.
What's interesting, and this is something that we've connected on, but maybe not in the exact same conversation, other than saying like, I see you and I get you, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life for that. And this is something I've surely never shared publicly, and I don't know that you've ever shared that story publicly in this manner. So kudos to your bravery, first off, and I'm going to mirror that because I think it's a hard thing to do. But it's a really important thing to do because there are so many people listening that have a need to be released from that guilt and that shame and that knowledge that innocence is something that we should harness as long as we possibly can. And mine was taken from me when I was 3. And so you're saying these stories and about your own life, and it just triggers images and flashbacks. And while I was really little, and I surely couldn't put even concepts of shame or guilt in my repertoire because I didn't even know the words. It too happened beneath my mom's nose, and she, to this day, just found out recently, almost 30 years later. So I actually really only uncovered it about 3 years ago through really deep counseling and trying to comprehend the actions that I made through my life in similar scenarios of not protecting what God truly believes and instills with such authority. And yet, as girls, we don't have the strength because of how sexuality is portrayed, whether it's through TV, whether it's through words, whether it's through magazines or photos now. And I'm so grateful that it wasn't around in the same capacity, but social media, what's expected of us as women. And as a mere 3-year-old, to have your mouth covered up in a shushing position, and someone who couldn't even mentally really soundly put together what he was doing himself. It's disgusting. That's the word that keeps coming to mind. And I hate to put that word over top of it. I'm shaking actually just thinking about it, but it's okay now, but it wasn't okay for so long because I didn't even know why. And you probably didn't even conceptualize, as you continue to give yourself away in that manner, why is this why I'm doing? Why do I keep doing it? Why do I keep putting myself in this situation? Why do I keep allowing myself to want to feel in this way?
Why do I desire this kind of love so deeply?
Right. And it's because you never were treated in the way that you were supposed to be. And I had this very high comprehension that in order to be loved, I had to act a certain way. I was expected to perform. And to this day, I just cringe when I see girls who are way too young to be wearing and talking and acting and receiving love the way that they're receiving it. And while my call, I know, is towards older women and releasing people from shame and guilt and walking in the light of who they were intended to be, man, does my heart go out to those girls.
Absolutely.
And I read this book called Sex in a Broken Culture. And it pinpointed exactly to a T all of these problems within our society. And I just one by one started like really recognizing it. Even, and I've said this in a previous episode about like the music that we listen to and how it's just constant. It's constantly there. And if you are constantly living in that space, in that mindset, you are going to become what they're asking you to become, because you don't have any strength to be anything else.
Yeah. And you don't know any better most of the time either.
And there's no, and I don't fault our parents' generation for this, but I've just really seen it, that the whole concept of the birds and the bees, first off, just call it what it is. Like the sex talk, like this is what's expected. This is what's not allowed. This is why, this is when, this is how. I never really had that at all. And it was just shut down. Like, you're not allowed to blank.
Yep.
And that was it.
Yep.
Yet I'm craving it.
Yep.
So what do I do?
Yeah. What do I do about it? Are these feelings normal? How do I process them? How do I control them?
And knowing what's
expected.
How
do I say no? Right. Is it okay to say no?
Right. I didn't feel like I was supposed to say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew, and I was simultaneously living this dual life, which was really difficult in and of itself, and where I feel like the concepts of mask in my life and titles really started to play into each other. Was that I was going to a youth camp, Young Life camp, because of, and Young Life in general, which is like a kids youth group through high school ministry. I was going because of pain that was happening in my household. I was masking what was happening within me. Everything was always projected. This is the problem.
Yep.
And this is a secret.
Right.
And I literally made a post today that you are as sick as your secrets. Right?
Oh.
And
that'll just make you throw up, not just in your mouth, but like everywhere.
I know. I can't stop shaking because it's really overwhelming. But I lived this life of expectation on one end. This is how you want me to act. So this is what I'm going to show you. This is who I am over here. But in secret, this is what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing to be loved.
Right.
And somehow the opposite sex, who was on the receiving end or the asking end or the pulling you in end, they made me believe that this space was the person I was supposed to be.
Right.
They made this space more comfortable than the space of Christianity that was supposed to be my safe harbor. But again, the secrets held me hostage.
Right.
And I can't blame those people anymore, which I did for a very long time.
Right.
Because they're in the same broken culture that I'm in. Exactly. And their homes were broken just like mine.
Exactly.
And so here we are, blossoming women. And I believe that for the first time in my life. And I think for you, you probably feel the same, though you've been past it, many more years of comprehension. I value that you have just held tight to what that means to you now. And it has been an example to me, even while being married.
Wow.
And so I know that it's something that you probably still struggle with.
Occasionally, yes. Especially in the context of being a single woman.
Correct.
And wanting to be married.
Correct.
There's a huge dynamic on that. On that end, I've actually been, as of last month, technically walking the life of celibacy for 6 years. Now, I will give you a caveat to that. I had a bit of, I was seeing somebody last year, and there were some challenges where there were some borderlines there. The overall purity was not completely compromised. And I prayed and I had peace with God, and he told me that I did not compromise my integrity. Though I do admit I made some mistakes that, some things that shouldn't have happened. And I walked through that forgiveness with him, and, I'm past that. I'm thankful for that. But most men these days, even Christian men, believe it or not, and it's kind of shocking sometimes, but then again, not really with our culture. But there's a lot of Christian men even today that just don't understand, and like, well, I'm human and I should be able to do that, and like, okay, that's, you have every right, but I'm choosing not to. And I'm choosing not to because I value myself now when I didn't value myself before. And I understand that I'm worth it. I'm worth the wait. And not trying to take that, you know, that statement that people have used. I don't know who owns that statement or who first came up with it, but thank you.
Worth the wait.
But yeah, like, I am worth the wait. I am. And I actually know a couple of people that waited, were virgins. Actually, I know someone through someone else who is still a virgin and not married, and is almost my age. And then I know someone who just got married probably about 2 or 3 years ago. She was like 32, I think, and stayed a virgin until she was married. And that's amazing.
It's amazing.
That stuff is not celebrated much anymore.
No, and
you know, it's really not.
Should be.
It is.
I got to witness it in 2 separate scenarios, and actually was at, wasn't it both weddings? No. I was at one of the 2, but really close to the other couple as well. And wow.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
takes a lot of self-control to do that. Whether you've been experienced to or predisposed to certain things or not, that takes a lot of self-control.
And do you know from their background what type of household they were raised in?
Yeah, one of them one of them is not a believer that I understand at all. I mean, raised Catholic or whatever, but we're not going to go there. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around the Catholic Church and everything. That could be a whole nother topic, and we don't have time for that. So
keep on keeping on.
The other person was not necessarily brought up in church, but ended up starting to go to youth group at some point during her teenage years. And or actually, I believe it was in college. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was either late teens or early on in college. She was going to youth camps and stuff, and that's when she began to get her life with walk with Christ and everything. So I don't think she had the perfect household, but it wasn't like it wasn't terrible.
I mean, nobody's household is perfect. I'm trying.
Nobody's household perfect, and so even still, it doesn't matter really what kind of lifestyle. I don't think it was pushed on her, you need to stay a virgin necessarily.
Sure.
And I don't know much about the other one, but it's definitely still amazing to me.
Well, it's something that
actually, when I think about it, I know a third person that I've just recently started getting connected with. And I haven't gotten too much involved in how
their background.
How much the background is, but I think she's in her mid-20s and she's still a virgin.
Well, everyone that I know, they came from a really just like foundationally Christian home. Both couples, both male and female. And it's not to say that being Christian versus not being Christian, but I know if you have that biblical understanding of intimacy, it's so much less about sex. Like, it's so much less about sex. And
into me you see.
Yes, the intimacy. Get that? Into me you see. It's like, it's
totally. I didn't come up with that either.
No, that's okay. It's not. It's neither. Doesn't matter one way or another. It is amazing, and it's just that I've literally had to comprehend that intimacy while already being married, while already having had sex with my husband prior to marriage, and then having kids with my husband. So imagine unpacking.
Be even more challenging.
Especially
finding out stuff, not finding out, but surfacing things from your past on top of all that. It's got to be just flat out overwhelming.
Well, and I just commend my husband for the place that we're at now.
I love your husband.
I know, he's incredible.
Can you clone him?
I would love to clone him. I've said
and just make him a little bit darker.
There you go. Yeah. I want to clone his heart and give it away to bodies that fit the intimacy level that you desire. But he truly he's walked this situation out with me for years now, and to the point of where I didn't even want anybody to touch me. to the point where I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror, to the point that I didn't want, I surely, like, whenever anything like in a sexual manner happens, even like with my kids around, like I am so cognitively aware on such a deep level of anything like that. And to the point that it's probably going to be to my kids' detriment. I hope I'm not that parent who's like, you cannot have sex. But I hope that I come up with a storyline of explaining the heart of God behind that passion. And I don't even think this was the intent of where this conversation was expected to go.
It went where God wanted it to.
But absolutely. I know at the beginning we talked about where we've been, how we got to where we were. We walked through the middle season of our life. And so I would love for you to share with people that wasn't even fully a part of the blossoming that you've done. And I'd love for you, to kind of unpack that a little bit more on where you are now, and like this whole concept of success coach. Like, that's a success in and of itself to be celibate for 6 years as a middle-aged 30-year-old woman who is his walk and is the testimony to your son, to your 15-year-old
and
son.
He's actually, I've had conversations with him. I haven't gone into great detail, but he knows what's happened in my past, and he knows the walk that I've been walking, and he, he understands.
Yeah, I love that.
For a 15-year-old, as much as he could understand,
who is his mom, and I get that there's a lot of fine lines in there, and but I think it's incredible, and I'm just commend you for being as strong as you have been. So thank you for being an example to my daughter and to many, many, many women out there that it is possible. And I want to give hope to the people who have been in marriage or who are outside of relationships, that it can start today. It's the decision that you make right now about how much you are worth, because you are worth so much, so much that a life was given for you, so much that a love is given to you and poured over you and prayed for you and planned out for you from before you were ever even conceived. So know your worth. Whoever's listening, know you are worth it, in so many different ways. So strange transition, but please share.
So, so there was a lot. There was a lot in the before military. And then when I went into the military, it kind of went with me. And military kind of got dumped on top of that. Like, weird visualization. Sometimes I get these visuals. Never had it like this, but it's like, I was thinking about an ice cream cone. And it's usually sweeter when you have more. More scoops on top of the cone. But what happens when you put too many scoops on top of the cone?
It's going to fall off.
Exactly.
That's good. That's a good visual.
Exactly.
I love it.
It was literally like the entire cone fell apart of my life. And I'm just a hot mess trying to push my way through. And I got very, very good at learning how to just keep pushing through. Just keep trucking along, because you know what? That's what I was told all my life. Just keep pushing through. It's just get over it. Just keep going. Just keep going. So I learned how to do it, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I literally ran my train off the tracks and still kept trying to drive that train. And it was beyond nuts. There was at least more than one occasion where I contemplated admitting myself to a mental hospital. There was one occasion prior to me joining the military that I took 14 ibuprofen hoping to end my life. Thankfully, ibuprofen really doesn't do that much. It could make you sick, like make you throw up or whatever. But fortunately, now please, anyone who's thinking anything, don't think that it's okay to take 14 ibuprofen. It's totally not okay. It's totally not okay.
100%.
But I'm grateful that it didn't do anything. But that's what I dealt with in my mind. I remember there were many years where I would be in such emotional turmoil that I would cry hysterically every day. I would scream. I would be angry. I would pull my hair so tight I was almost pulling it out, and I would bang my head on walls because there was so much going on in my head, and I didn't understand what to do with it. and nobody else understood.
Sure.
And so the only thing I could do was just try to get it out. Essentially, I would try to bang it out, try to pull it out, like, and it didn't work. Finally, through meeting Christ, and working through that relationship and other people that I came into contact with through the church, I started to get some healing. And that's kind of what's helped me on the road to celibacy and many other areas of healing. And within that, and within my time in the military, I decided, my son's father, when we were together, had encouraged me to go back to school. And I never thought that I could even go to school because one, I couldn't afford it. And I was a CD student before I dropped out and I hated school. So why would I go back to school? Why would I go to college when I hated school and I wasn't good at it? But he encouraged me to at least try. He said, you have these benefits that are free to you. Why are you not using them? So I started off with an associate's, trying to go for an associate's, ended up, before that was done, switching to a bachelor's and got my bachelor's degree. Before I was finished my bachelor's degree, I was like, I want to go further. I want to go get my master's degree.
So cool.
What in the world was I thinking? So, here I go, more school. So I go and I get my master's degree. And when I was finishing that, my dad said, and a couple other people said, you should go for your doctorate. And I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done. Like, that's it. Well,
I love it.
3 years later,
that's so crazy.
I'm sitting at work after like a couple of days had gone by, and like multiple people had talked about school, going back to school for this and that and whatever. And all of a sudden, I just got this. It wasn't like a voice that I heard. It was just this general calming peace that just said, it's time to go back.
Wow.
It's time to go back. And so I found a school and I enrolled, and by the end of the year, prayerfully, if all continues to go well, I will have my doctorate degree.
So amazing. That degree is in what?
The degree is in business administration with a concentration in leadership. Just in March, I finished all of my classes with a 4.0. And in some of that, I think the teachers just kind of said, here, we want you to finish the class, so just here's an A.
That's awesome.
But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of writing, a lot of research, a lot of days where I was crying.
But from from a dropout to a doctorate.
Exactly.
And that is like, boom.
It is.
Like a story. It's so in
and what's developed in all of that, think of all the stuff that I went through. And I mean, I know people that went through far worse than me. And I commend them for just even still being here today. But thinking about all the stuff that I had been through and each level that I've gone up and how much, I've progressed educationally, especially through the help of God and my friends and family that have supported me. What's resonated in my heart so much is that no matter how far down you've gone, no matter how much you've messed up, you can not only rise above, but you can go further than you ever dreamed.
So true.
Go further than you can ever dreamed. And basically, that's kind of what has birthed this success coach concept. My desire is to help people to figure out where are they stuck, develop a plan to move forward, and coach them through that process.
So good.
That's it.
It's so good.
That's really it.
And I love, a big component of that, just from where you've started out on that, is your journey. And that's honestly a whole nother podcast that, based on time, we might not have time to talk about today. But I love that, you're starting from that financial piece, which I think is such a vulnerable conversation for so many people already, because that's a place that you often hide. Again, you're only as sick as your secrets. And the facade, again, the mask of what we put out in front for people to see, because what you drive matters, what your house looks like matters, but What debt are you carrying? What spending habits are you utilizing as comfort? Whether it's food, whether it's shopping, so many different things. So I love that you're starting in a place that seems business-like, but it's going to give you an opportunity to just let people be transparent.
Yeah.
And that right there is going to give you the true in for that transformation piece, because if we can get our finances aligned and we can be honest about something as secretive as that, then you can really help from, okay, the finances are causing me anxiety. This is stemming from this situation, from I didn't have money when I was younger, which is stemming from the fact that I lived out of a van with a mattress. And so you get to really, it's not just the success of what society deems as success, but what Jesus deems as success.
Right.
And that I'm so excited to see for people.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And we don't realize that. We look at society and we look at society says you should do this and you should do that. But between you and God, as long as it's in the will of God, you set the bar.
Yeah.
You set the bar. And when you get close to that bar, if you want, you raise it.
Yeah.
And you keep raising it.
Yeah. I love that. It's funny because Raise the Bar is like a
oh my God,
thing
the,
from Burn.
The Burn thing.
And she's recently become my Burn sister too, which is amazing. And we talk, my shtick is all the mind, body, and soul component. And I feel like you've gotten so mentally strong. You are so spiritually strong. And here you are working out alongside me to get that physical component that I just think is going to make you unstoppable. And I just love seeing that component of you just thrive, because your testimony is just going to grow from that. So more power to you, like for constantly raising the bar, not for other people, but for yourself first.
Yes.
And walking that out first.
Yes.
Because I think so often we have this desire, and you might have this internal call or purpose over your life that you knew a long time ago, like, I want this for other people. You have a soft heart, you have a kind heart, you have gone through all of these trials. I don't want other people to do this. But until you are personally capable of standing on your own 2 feet, there's no way you can help somebody else stand up. It's just not possible. You're not sturdy enough for them to hold on to.
And once you get to that point where you're able to stand up, you better reach back and help someone else up.
Amen, girl.
Do not leave them there.
Yeah.
Because you used to be there, and you most likely had somebody help you through it.
Yes, so true. There's a Brene Brown book that I'm reading right now, Dare to Lead. It is amazing. She talks a lot about vulnerability and transparency, but all of it is about leadership. It'd be amazing for your doctorate component. But she's talking about creating this square squad. And I'm actually talking about it tonight at Core, which we're going to do afterwards. But it's kind of like the inner circle concept of what we're often taught. Like, you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And in church, Pastor Robbie's always talking about that inner circle being so covenant, and it doesn't need to be 400 people or 40 people it needs to be 4 people. So she changes it. Brene changes it to the square squad. So it's a square, and it's who is, in front of you, who's beside you, who's behind you. And she doesn't actually talk about it from that perspective. She just calls the square squad because there's 4 people. And so the way I unpacked it and visualized it was that there's the person in front of you. They're your mentor. It's the person you're following behind. I want to go where you're going. They're the person who's probably been where you are, and they're the one reaching up behind to say, come on with me, just like you said. And then you have your people who are beside you, which would be like you and me for each other. The person who's like your sister, who's just like, come on, you've got this. Let's go. I'll go with you. I'll experience this with you. But then you have to have that person who's behind you that will catch you when you fall.
Taking it back to the beginning of the conversation, and tying a military concept into that. So in the military, if you're not driving, if you're walking, usually, even in the convoy, you got cars in vehicles in front of you, vehicles behind you. The vehicle in the front and the vehicle in the back usually have someone with weapons. And they're, basically looking in all directions to cover a whole 360. Right. And if you're walking around, it's the same concept. You at least have two people, but a lot of times you try to make sure you have a full 360 coverage. And if you've ever heard the concept, I got your six. So usually on the clock, exactly.
Yeah.
The 12 and the 6.
Cool.
So the concept is, and a lot of times it's two people, but you can also have 4. You can have more people. And so, you have that everybody's covering something.
It's like the clock. So you've got
and
the 12, the 3, the 9,
here
the 6.
Can scan this way. The people here scan this way, scan this way, and scan this way, and you got the whole thing covered.
That's awesome.
That's
so
exactly
good.
what I see when I see you draw that.
That's so cool. I love it. It's a different dynamic, but it seriously makes up the exact same thing. Circle versus a square.
Yeah.
So it's
full coverage.
Yeah. And I'm pumped to be alongside it with you. I'm excited to see as you. Ow, that was your elbow?
It was my elbow.
Okay, we need to get to the gym. Make sure it doesn't break. But imagining you being almost all of these for somebody, and not for one person, but you're going to be that mentor for someone who's like, come on, you are a sister already to me, and so many other walking life out alongside us. But then also that person who's like, I got your 6. And I love that about you because you're on guard all the time.
Probably too much sometimes.
Maybe so. Maybe to a fault. We all have our pros can be our cons.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
So, I mean, it's an interesting concept. Even like I was just going through the conversation of addiction and how your addictive personality can actually be your biggest strength if your addiction is for good. And yet at the same time, it can be your largest weakness when your addiction is turned to bad. So, I don't even know how to close today out because it was just so dynamic in so many different ways. But do you have anything else that you want to share or say? I know we talked about other things.
Well, I think we really have touched everything. I mean, other than going deep into the financial stuff, I mean, I've made some really poor choices financially and then learned a lot of things. By the way, I love Dave Ramsey. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. So I've learned a lot of things from that, and that's really helped to shape certain things as well. And, maybe another time we can have another podcast.
We will.
But when I was on my way here, and I think you had asked me to, kind of think about some things, I had just a couple of words that popped in my head. And those words were get back up. And so I just want to encourage anyone else who's listening to this, no matter where you are in your life, even if you've achieved a bunch of stuff, but you feel like you're stuck or you feel like there's not another level, I encourage you there is. Or if you have messed up in a certain area of your life and you feel like there's no way to go back to that and start again, or even try something new. And maybe it's not start again with that, but maybe it's start again with something new. Whatever it is, get back up, try again.
I love it. I was just literally teaching my 5-year-old how to ride a 2-wheeler, which he knows how to do, but he just has this fear factor that he's going to fall, which why not? And yesterday he kept getting so frustrated. He gets so mad when he can't win or when he doesn't achieve. And it's literally pushed on himself because I'm an achiever. So I try really hard not to press that upon him that he has to be the best. Just do your best. You don't have to be the best. But he kept falling. And I just kept saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And he would stomp his feet. The tears would flow immediately. And he got so mad. And he's like, oh, I just have to make it home. And he would get back on the bike and keep going. And I just was so proud of him at the end because it is hard. It's not easy to get back up. There's going to be people who are in your way saying that you can't do it. And likely they're going to be the people who are closest to you. You keep going, just like you said. You raise the bar for yourself, not for anybody else's pleasure, not for anybody else's expectations, but for yourself, because you are the one with yourself at the end of the day. You are the one who looks in your reflection when you're brushing your teeth in the morning. That is the time that you get to be real and most alive with yourself. If you are not getting back up, you are just you're failing. You're falling. And there is such opportunity to just get right with yourself and that vertical alignment before you ever concern yourself with the horizontal alignment of other people. And when you are ready, that horizontal alignment becomes beautiful because you're open and able to walk out like linked arm in arm.
And I've walked out many years without having that open accessibility for other people. My arms were tight to my side and I was marching forward, but I was not allowing anybody else to come along for the ride, even my own husband. So I'm thankful that I've learned that ability to just like be open for other people and knowing the value of getting back up and helping others up along the way. And you definitely have been an inspiration to me and helped me up many times with your words and just your presence. So I'm grateful to have you here. I hope that others, and I know other people have already experienced you from the Michelle Marie Success Coach space that you now are jumping into alongside your doctorate degree. It's insane. It's amazing. I'm so proud of you.
I still don't like. I'm
It's
still
so
not
cool.
comprehending.
I know.
It's
It's
just
so
like,
amazing. PhD. That's so wild. And so just if you guys want to look her up, she's incredible. I'll link her on the podcast and all of the lives that you guys are a part of now. It's been real. It's been amazing.
yes.
And I'm thankful for you.
I love you.
Love you too.
I love your smile.
All right. The dogs have been with us the whole time and you haven't barked one time. You want to say anything? No, nothing.
So sweet.
All right. Lots of love, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Tamara Andress. I'm your Fit and Faith host, and I am so excited to just be here to share with you other movers, dreamers, shakers, entrepreneurs, pastors, whatever. If you've got a head and you've got a heart, I'm so excited to explore who that is, whose you are, and discover your wholeness, your health, your wealth, and your joy. I love to exude happiness. I want people to know that this is not, this came with trial. You guys, this came with a lot of effort. This came with a lot of lows and so many highs. And I want us to experience those together. This is a real community of dreamers, and I'm excited to help catapult your calling, your kingdom experience, the purpose of your imprint on the world, wherever, however that is. So come along for the ride. I'm excited to chat with you. Like, comment, review, send me a DM, send me an email. It's me responding, even though I have an incredible team. And so I'm just excited to get to know you. Let's connect, let's create community, and let's walk in our calling.